Have you ever wondered what happens when someone broken discovers a purpose so powerful it transforms not just their life, but an entire community? What would you do if you met a stranger whose story changed everything you thought you knew about compassion and determination? Today, we're diving into a remarkable true story that proves ordinary people can accomplish the extraordinary when they refuse to give up. And before we begin this incredible journey, make sure to hit that subscribe button and leave a like, because this story deserves to be shared with everyone who needs a reminder that miracles can happen in the most unexpected ways. Sharon Stevens lives a life without direction in a small town in Kentucky, working as a hairdresser but spending her nights lost in alcohol and empty experiences at local bars. Her existence feels meaningless, a cycle of work and self-destructive behavior that leaves her searching for something she cannot name. She is a single mother who became pregnant at a young age and failed to be present for her son, a guilt that haunts her daily and drives her further into her pattern of avoidance. This pain from her past creates a wall between her and any sense of fulfillment, making every day feel like a continuation of previous mistakes. Meanwhile, Ed Schmidt faces his own devastating reality as a widower struggling to care for his two daughters after recently losing his wife. The same illness that took his wife now threatens his youngest daughter, Michelle, only 5 years old, who desperately needs a liver transplant to survive. Ed works tirelessly, but finds himself drowning in massive medical debts that accumulate faster than he can possibly pay them, creating a suffocating financial burden that makes every day a battle for survival. He is apathetic and angry, a man who has been beaten down by tragedy and cannot see any path forward, though he remains deeply loving and protective of his daughters. His older daughter watches as the family struggles, and Ed tries desperately to shield both girls from the full extent of their dire circumstances. Sharon hears about Ed's family situation and decides to meet him, an encounter that reveals the true depth of his crisis. What she discovers shakes her. The debts are astronomical, the child's condition is critical, and the family teeters on the edge of collapse. Something awakens inside Sharon at this moment, a recognition that this family's struggle could become her redemption and her purpose. She makes an unexpected decision that surprises everyone, including herself, committing to help this family of strangers no matter what it takes. This choice marks the beginning of Sharon's transformation from a woman lost in her own pain to someone driven by a mission larger than herself. Sharon organizes a community fundraiser, hoping to collect enough money to help with Ed's overwhelming debts. The effort brings in just over $3,000, which barely makes a dent in the massive amounts Ed owes, and the reality of how insufficient this is becomes painfully clear. Ed feels extremely uncomfortable accepting charity from strangers, his pride wounded by the public exposure of his family's struggles. Despite this setback, Sharon refuses to stop or be discouraged, instead becoming even more determined and relentless in her efforts. She transforms into what can only be described as an unstoppable force, willing to move heaven and earth to save Michelle and support this family. Her next strategy involves attempting to negotiate forgiveness of one of the astronomical medical debts, a bold move that requires persistence and courage. Sharon continues finding creative solutions, helping Ed secure better employment that pays more and allows him to provide for his daughters more effectively. She contacts local media to publicize the family's story, understanding that public attention might generate additional support and resources. Each action Sharon takes demonstrates her growing commitment and her evolution from someone who couldn't find meaning in her own life to someone who has discovered profound purpose through serving others. Ed struggles with Sharon's involvement, caught between desperate need and stubborn independence. He clearly exists in a space that is both a comfort zone and a zone of suffering, paralyzed by his grief and unable to imagine a different future. Sharon disrupts this paralysis by demanding that he believe more in himself and recognize that new possibilities exist even after devastating loss. At one point, Ed's frustration peaks and he argues with Sharon, demanding that she leave his family alone. Yet by this time, the connection between them has become irreversible. Alan Ritchson portrays this complex man who is simultaneously broken, angry, unable to accept help, and tenderly devoted to his children. Through her intense involvement with Ed's family, Sharon confronts her own buried tragedies and unresolved guilt, Her past failures as a mother surface, forcing her to examine the choices she made and the relationship she damaged with her son. She makes efforts to reconnect with her son and restore the affection and attention she failed to provide when he needed her most. This parallel journey of redemption becomes as important as the mission to save Michelle, showing how helping others can catalyze personal healing. Sharon's dedication to Ed's family becomes a path to forgiveness, both from others and from herself. The screenplay builds toward a climactic sequence where seemingly impossible circumstances begin to align in unexpected ways. A series of improbable events converges, each one necessary for Michelle's transplant to actually happen. Against all odds and medical probabilities, the pieces fall into place through a combination of Sharon's tireless advocacy, community support, and what many would call divine intervention. The tension during these moments is immense because the outcome remains uncertain until the very end, with the real possibility that despite everyone's efforts, the little girl might not receive the miracle she needs. The film, directed by John Gunn, emphasizes themes of faith and collective purpose, showing how a community united by shared intention can accomplish what seems impossible. What makes this story so powerful is that it is not a typical Hollywood romance where two broken people fall in love and fix each other. Instead, the love that develops between Sharon and Ed is about mutual redemption and shared purpose rather than romantic attachment. The film demonstrates that profound love can exist without taking a romantic direction, that connection and transformation can come through service and sacrifice. Both characters evolve through their relationship, each one pulling the other toward healing and hope in different ways. Sharon pulls Ed out of his apathy and despair, while Ed's situation gives Sharon the purpose she desperately needed. The director John Gunn previously worked on faith-based films and brings that sensibility to this true story. The movie explores not just individual faith, but the power of collective belief when an entire community rallies around a common goal. It shows everyday miracles performed by ordinary heroes whose mission is to bring hope into other people's lives. The message resonates deeply, that regular people have the capacity to move mountains when they commit themselves fully to a cause greater than their own problems. Sharon's journey from a directionless woman drowning in alcohol and regret to a fierce advocate who refuses to accept no for an answer illustrates the transformative power of purpose. The story also examines how tragedy can either destroy people or become the catalyst for extraordinary growth. Ed begins the story as a man defeated by circumstances, unable to imagine anything beyond his current suffering. Through Sharon's persistent intervention and refusal to let him give up, he begins to see himself differently and recognize his own strength. His transformation is quieter than Sharon's, but equally significant, moving from despair to hope and from isolation to connection. The contrast between his character here and the brutal action hero Alan Ritchson plays in other projects demonstrates his range as an actor. Michelle's critical condition creates the ticking clock that drives the narrative urgency throughout the film. In reality, both of Ed's daughters suffered from the same illness that claimed their mother, but the screenplay focuses the dramatic weight on the younger child to intensify the stakes. This choice allows the audience to fully invest in the race against time to secure the liver transplant before it is too late. Every setback Sharon and Ed face carries the weight of a child's life hanging in the balance, making their persistence even more remarkable. The fact that this happened in real life makes the story even more emotionally impactful than any fictional tale could be. Hilary Swank brings her considerable talent to the role of Sharon Stevens, creating a character who is flawed, determined, and ultimately heroic. The two-time Oscar winner is known for choosing roles that challenge her, and Sharon represents another complex woman whose strength emerges through vulnerability and commitment. Swank captures both Sharon's brokenness at the beginning and her fierce dedication once she discovers her purpose. The performance shows a woman who channels her own pain into action on behalf of others, transforming personal suffering into collective healing. This role stands alongside her previous acclaimed performances in films that explore human resilience and determination. The film also examines the discomfort many people feel when accepting help from others, a theme embodied in Ed's resistance to Sharon's involvement. Pride and shame often prevent people from reaching out or receiving assistance even when they desperately need it. Ed's struggle with this dynamic feels authentic, showing a man who wants to handle everything himself despite being overwhelmed. Sharon's persistence challenges this mindset, demonstrating that accepting help is not weakness, but wisdom, and that community support can make the impossible possible. This tension between independence and interdependence runs throughout the story, ultimately resolving in favor of connection and mutual aid. The screenplay skillfully balances multiple emotional threads without becoming melodramatic or manipulative. It explores Sharon's broken relationship with her son, Ed's grief over his wife, the daughter's fear of losing their sister, and the community's gradual mobilization around this family's crisis. Each element receives attention without overwhelming the central narrative of Michelle's fight for survival and Sharon's mission to save her. The storytelling maintains hope even in the darkest moments, refusing to succumb to despair while also not pretending that the obstacles are anything less than enormous. This tonal balance allows the audience to remain invested without feeling emotionally manipulated. The small Kentucky town setting becomes its own character in the story, representing both the limitations and possibilities of tight-knit communities. Small towns can be places where everyone knows your business, but they can also be places where people rally together when one of their own needs help. The film shows how Sharon mobilizes this community spirit, turning neighbors into allies in her mission to save Michelle. The media attention she generates expands the circle of support beyond the immediate town, demonstrating how local stories can inspire broader action. This dynamic illustrates how individual determination combined with collective effort can achieve results that neither could accomplish alone. One of the most moving aspects of the story is how it redefines what it means to be a hero. Sharon is not a doctor or a wealthy philanthropist or someone with obvious power to change circumstances. She is a hairdresser with her own struggles and failures, someone most people would overlook as unremarkable. Yet her refusal to accept defeat and her tireless advocacy make her the catalyst for Michelle's survival. The film argues that everyday heroes exist all around us, people who choose to act when they see injustice or suffering rather than looking away. This message empowers viewers to recognize their own capacity to make a difference, regardless of their resources or status. The question of why Sharon commits so completely to this family of strangers drives much of the emotional depth. On the surface, her motivation comes from recognizing their need and wanting to help. But on a deeper level, her investment in saving Michelle represents an attempt to save herself, to prove that she can be the person she failed to be for her own son. This psychological complexity makes Sharon's character more than just a selfless saint. She is a flawed human being seeking redemption through service. Her journey shows that we can transform our regrets into positive action, and that it is never too late to become who we wish we had been. The medical debt crisis depicted in the film reflects a harsh reality many families face when dealing with serious illness. Ed's situation illustrates how quickly a family can be financially destroyed by healthcare costs, even when parents work hard and try to do everything right. The astronomical debts he accumulates are not from irresponsibility, but from trying to keep his daughter alive, a situation that highlights systemic failures in how society supports families facing medical emergencies. While the film focuses on individual and community solutions rather than policy critique, the underlying reality adds urgency to Sharon's fundraising efforts and debt negotiation attempts. This context makes the story resonate with anyone who has experienced or witnessed the financial devastation that can accompany serious illness. The relationship between Sharon and Ed evolves from her intrusion into his life to genuine partnership as they work toward their shared goal. Initially, Ed sees Sharon as an annoying stranger who will not leave his family alone. Gradually, he comes to depend on her support and recognize that her involvement comes from a place of authentic care rather than pity or self-aggrandizement. Their bond forms through shared struggle and mutual respect rather than romantic attraction, creating a different kind of intimacy. By the end, they have become essential to each other's healing journeys, each one helping the other find a way forward from their respective traumas. The film's exploration of faith operates on multiple levels, from personal belief to communal action. Sharon's transformation can be seen as a spiritual awakening, a moment when she stops living for herself and starts living for something larger. Ed's journey involves learning to have faith again after loss has destroyed his ability to hope. The community's involvement represents collective faith in action. People choosing to believe that their contributions matter and that together they can create miracles. Director John Gunn weaves these themes throughout, without becoming preachy, allowing the story itself to carry the spiritual message. The film suggests that faith is not just about believing in something beyond ourselves, but about taking concrete action based on that belief. What ultimately makes this story so compelling is its basis in reality, the knowledge that these events actually happened, and these people truly exist. The real Sharon Stevens did mobilize her community to help the real Ed Schmidt and his daughters. The improbable circumstances that led to Michelle's transplant actually occurred despite overwhelming odds. This truth elevates the narrative beyond feel-good fiction into the realm of documented human triumph. It serves as proof that extraordinary compassion and determination exist in the world, that people really do sacrifice and persevere for strangers, and that seemingly impossible situations can resolve through persistence and collective effort. The film asks viewers to consider their own capacity for this kind of transformative action. It challenges the assumption that one person cannot make a significant difference and demonstrates that ordinary individuals can change lives when they commit fully to a cause. Sharon's example shows that purpose can be found even after years of aimlessness, and that our past failures do not disqualify us from future heroism. Ed's story illustrates that accepting help and allowing others into our struggles is not defeat, but courage. Together, their journey offers hope that no situation is truly hopeless, and that love expressed through action can move mountains. This remarkable true story of a hairdresser from Kentucky who refused to let a stranger's child die proves that the most powerful force in the world is not wealth or status, but determined compassion. Sharon Stevens found her redemption by giving everything to save Michelle Schmidt, and in doing so, she demonstrated what humanity looks like at its absolute best. The miracle was not just the transplant that saved a little girl's life, but the transformation of broken people into heroes through their commitment to something greater than themselves.